Today we start on the hoop house in earnest. Let's see what we can get done in a few days. Mandy is planting peppers all along the fence. Transplanting, should I say. So for this phase of the construction, it made sense to bring the chop saw down to the work site. I wanted to cut all of the support beams and cross beams to size down here before taking them back to the shed and cutting the recesses for the half lap joints where they crossed each other. It made sense to me at the time, and it actually paid off, because as you can see from the video footage, I'm actually measuring more than twice, so I only have to cut once, which has worked out well since I've adopted that attitude. As you can see, I'm working on the back side of the hoop house. We've already put the front end section together. I used that as the prototype to figure out how I was going to do the back side. So this back has gone a lot quicker than the front side went, because I had an exact idea of how I was going to be doing this one. So after chopping all the wood in the shed, getting all the rebates cut, it was a simple matter to just bring them down, put them in place, clamp them together, check it for square, and I was happily surprised to see that everything fit. Certainly helps when you've got a clear plan in your head of exactly what you need to do. Hoop house moving along. See how far we get today. Lots of work to do still. By this stage I was sick and tired of climbing over the doorway instead of walking through it. So I prioritized getting the end panel beefed up so that I could cut out the top wooden section that's holding it square. I didn't want to cut that piece out until I built up the framework around it to make sure that there was something else that was holding the side piece rigid. I needed to get the door frame in place. Now the support posts for the sides were cemented in at this time, but I didn't want to put any undue stress on any of the framework. So that's why I followed the approach of beefing it up before cutting the top support beam out. Worked out pretty well. Now I knew where the final upright support needed to go to support the wider fascia boards. I grabbed the circular saw and just cut the rebate in place. It was a lot quicker than taking the support beam apart and taking it up to the shed to cut it on the chop saw up there. It worked out pretty well. I mean, it's not something I haven't done before. Just use a circular saw, make a few cuts to the right depth, and then grab a chisel, and you can clean it up with a chisel and a file and a bit of sandpaper to make sure you get a decent fit. It worked out pretty well on this one, as you'll see when I need to use the clamp to get it to pop into place. Notice Mandy beavering away in the background there.
That's much better.
Time to back up. Back out tomorrow morning, after I've been to the wood shop to buy wood for the fascias. I need wider wood, because the 15 mils just not going to cut it. I'll go for 20.
do it in 2 pieces instead of 1, 2, 3. We'll see.
So by this stage I was getting bored with this job. It seems to have been dragging on and on forever. So I figured once I'd got one corner sorted for fascia boards, I could use that as a template for the other 3 corners. I mean, if everything's square and everything's straight, that should work, right? So that's what I proceeded to do. Spent a lot of time preparing the wood, particularly on the surfaces that we're going to be mating with the plastic. I wasn't keen on us ripping the plastic as we're pulling it over, number 1, or number 2, the plastic ripping itself to shreds when it gets windy against a piece of wood that's full of splinters, etc. So spent quite a bit of time here prepping the wood, getting it nice and smooth, and ready to go up on the end panels when they were prepped. Here I am preparing the bottom side fascia boards. Basically need to be cut out sort of in a curve. I didn't have anything else to use, so used one of these plastic supports for shade cloth that we got from the gardener centre, used it as a flexi curve, and that seemed to work quite well. Got Mandy to give a hand, and I can draw the inside curve, which was pretty parallel to the outside curve, so I was quite happy with the way that worked out. Then able to cut it out with a jigsaw to shape, and then put it into the treatment process of getting it all sanded up and smoothed out, so we could then staple plastic onto it eventually. I should have used the belt sander first on the edge, so I could have got a better finish with the router. It would have saved me a bit of time. Instead of doing the routering twice, I could have done it once.
Made some progress today. Didn't film because the camera was flat. Mandy's jumped in to help paint, move things along quicker. We're getting there. Hopefully have it finished. We've got rain coming this evening, so I wanted to get some paint on the unprepared wood before that happened. Pencil. Typical, I left all the pencils in the shed. I'll be back.
So after recovering a pencil from the shed, I was able to get back down and had the instruments required to make marks and know where to cut. Mandy gave me a hand just to put the top board in place so I could draw a line as to where to cut it off the fascia board so it would sit snugly on top of the other panel that I'd fitted onto the beam. Once that was done, we were able to put it back in place, double check again that it fit correctly. It did, so we clamped it in place and got ready to do the final fixing with screws to the support beams. Mandy gave a hand, bit of direction, and was helping me with putting screws into the holes ready for me to screw them in. Took the top piece off, not sure why. Put it back to screw it back in place. And then we were pretty much done with the one half of the back side. A few more bits and pieces we needed to put on just to brace it. I'm actually thankful that I made a change to the design and went for wider boards. It meant I could get 2 boards instead of using 3 or possibly 4 boards to follow the curvature if I'd used 15mm boards. Only downside is the boards that I used were 25mm, so they had bowed slightly. But I could work around that just by making sure that I braced everything and tied everything tight. Generally, I'm quite happy with the way it all worked out. It took me a couple of weeks to figure it out in my head and get my head around exactly how I was going to do it. But I'm pretty happy with the way it's worked out.
Mandy doing her bit, painting. There we go, all the woodworking's finished. Painting, Mandy's holding me up now. It's just taking so bloody long to paint. See how brave I am when she's up a ladder. Good job, babe. Looking good. Construction work finished. Well, not quite. Got to make the door frame and window frames. And then cover it with plastic. Sword. Eight meters by 4 meters. Plenty of height, so we should do pretty well in here, I think. Just put in a base for a table for potting and stuff like that. Sorted. It took a lot longer than it should have, but I've been lazy. Well, not lazy, too busy watching what the hell's going on with trucker protests and all sorts of stuff.
I'm going to end the video here. Make sure to look out for part 3 where I'll take you through the building of the internal raised beds, fitting of the drip irrigation, etc. If you've already watched some of our spring preparation videos, I've covered pretty much all of that in there, but for completeness sake I'll just put a 3rd episode together, so if anyone wants to watch the series of Hoop House, they've got it all in one sort of playlist to watch. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there.